Welcome to another Coffee with Samso, where we talk with ASX companies about the stories of what they're doing and being told by the guys who run these companies. Today we're at the UWA Club here in Crawley on a beautiful autumn's morning. I've got Brad Underwood back with us from Galileo Mining. The ASX code is GAL. Currently a market cap of 35 million. Brad, welcome back. It's been a while since we had a little chat about what you guys have been doing. Looking forward. Maybe just give us an update of what's been happening.
Yeah, sure. I can't remember the last time we spoke, Noel, but I think it was perhaps mid to late last year.
Yeah.
At that stage, we were heavily focused in the Fraser Range, and we are still working there. So to give you a brief recap, we're a West Australian-based company focused on nickel, palladium, and the metals that occur with those elements. So we explore for anything of value really, but mostly focused on nickel and palladium in the Fraser Range and at our projects around Norseman.
I think you just reminded me the last time we did speak, you guys were just starting off a program in Norseman. I think you are, and I've seen some of your announcements that you are doing that again, right? Recently starting or started?
We're about to start drilling again. So last year we undertook a large-scale air core drilling program around Norseman.
Yep.
And as is normal for exploration companies, we start off with a broad approach, looking at a number of targets. And as we build those targets up, we hone in on those areas that we believe have potential for economic mineralisation. So the next round of drilling will be using a bigger rig. That's an RC rig. We're capable of drilling deeper holes and looking for targets at depth, whereas the air core is just a shallow technique, perhaps down to 60, 70 metres, depending on the type of rock in that location.
You started off with the Albany Fraser, and then you've then started the project in Norseman around the Jimbalana dike. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Yes, you did. Yep.
When we started, we talked about what you did initially and what you guys sort of knew at that time, and you've done obviously a fair bit of work there now. Have you sort of had any light bulb moment and said, oh yeah, maybe we should be doing this now instead of that, since you started working there?
The targets continue to expand, which is the amazing thing for us. So often with exploration, after you've done a number of rounds, the targets will get smaller because you're focusing in on those areas of most interest. What we've found at Norseman is that the targets just keep getting bigger. So we have 3 geological domains that we are focusing on. The one at the Jimbalana, which you mentioned. We also have the Mission Sill and the Mount Thirsty Sill. So those 3 prospects are significant targets, and every time we undertake air core drilling, we find that the strike length increases. So we're really now looking at the best way of focusing in on those areas of higher grade using geophysics and RC drilling.
Okay. Is the geology at Norseman similar to Albany Fraser in terms of what it is, first of all, and how potentially it is being emplaced?
It depends how you look at it. We are looking for ultramafic rocks, but the ages are very different and the method of emplacement of those rocks is very different. So we're talking about 1 billion years of age difference. Okay. So immediately you can understand that there is significant differences between the type of rocks, and then it's about how they are emplaced. So the sills we are looking at, and a sill is a name for a rock unit that's come up from the depths as a magma, and then is concordant or parallel to the stratigraphy. So those are usually emplaced at shallow depths. And then the Jimbalana dike is a very large scale, 300 kilometre long cross-cutting dike, which is a unit of rock that's broken open the host rock and then filled it in with molten magma, which is then solidified. The Fraser Range, just by comparison, is most likely a deeper style of intrusive body that's come in and been emplaced at perhaps 8 to 10 kilometres. So different types of emplacement, but when you look at the rock and hand specimen, and particularly if you're looking at the sulphides are the key elements, and they look very similar, and they respond the same way to geophysics, and we target them the same way with drilling.
Did you say the chemistry of the host rock could be similar, or would they be totally different?
The chemistry of the host rock is it's similar. So we're looking at a volcanic sedimentary package of rocks, and particularly at Mount Thirsty, where there is a unit of sedimentary rocks which is hit by an ultramafic magma that is a trigger for sulphide development. And we see some of those processes operating in the Fraser Range, but to a lesser extent. So we are seeing some similarities and also some very important key differences. So the targeting of mineralisation at, say, the Mount Thirsty sill is based around where that ultramafic has hit the sediment and then triggered sulphide saturation and the dropping out of the sulphides. And hopefully those sulphides will contain economic amounts of palladium and nickel, which is our next drilling program.
Yep. Okay. And I guess, not to harp on this topic, but has strategies changed since, in terms of how you look for it? Because obviously exploration is about hit and misses, and we've had this discussion. I've had this discussion with a lot of people as well. Is that exploration is not a overnight process, right? It's most times it's decades, depending on which part of the timeline you come into it. You benefit from those previous work. So what from you guys have started and you looked at it, and has your thinking and strategy changed in terms of how you guys work? Yep.
Yeah, the high level strategy hasn't changed, and that is to try and make discoveries. How we go about it does change, and I've heard a description of intelligence, which is someone who is intelligent is measured by what you do when you don't know what to do, right? So you think about that for a while, you're not exactly sure how to go about exploring. You can't say what you'll be going on and doing in 6 months' time, but you work on a day-to-day basis, collecting the information and refining what you do as you go. If you had and maintained one strategy over the course of the exploration program, you'll find that it'll be inefficient and you'll waste money. So you need to keep refining what you do based on new information coming in, and that's exploration.
Again, looking into this, because obviously I'm an exploration geologist and you're at the coalface doing this. When you look at your projects now, and whether you use Norseman or the Albany Fraser as the example, are we looking at obviously you're looking for nickel, palladium, everything else. Are you thinking that you might be in a different mineralizing sort of, not event, but process, like how when we were the progress of nickel exploration, Komatiites was not sort of there. Then you have Julimar's, concept came up, was again not something we were commonly doing. So do you think you might have that something different, or that means that you have to think differently?
Absolutely. I think we have the potential at Norseman to be looking at a new area or province with a lot of potential for palladium and nickel, away from the Komatiite style of mineralisation. And this is really focused around Norseman with the Jimbalana dike and the two sills that we have there. So it's quite a unique geology, and we are exploring that and hoping to make discoveries. And if we are successful, I think that'll be the development of a new palladium-rich province, but we'll have to wait and see.
Okay. So we may have touched on this before, but I, for one, and I'm taking a bet that a lot of people out there are the same, is what is a good grade for palladium, and what kind of intercept is something that we should, as investors, potential investors, should be looking for?
For your standard exploration company, as they go through that process of exploring, I would be keeping an eye out for anything over 1 gram per tonne palladium, over 1 metre or 3 metres or more, because that's a good indication that there is mineralisation in the area. And then when it comes to resources, I think a good grade would be 1.5 grams and above. And depending on the size, the shape of the ore body, its location, and a number of other economic factors. But resource grades are 1.5, 2 grams or more I think would begin to be economic, depending on a number of other factors. But for your typical exploration company, you need to keep an eye on those results, which are growing over a gram per tonne palladium. And of course, palladium usually occurs with nickel, copper, platinum, and sometimes gold, and sometimes the other PGEs as well, rhodium being the one of high value at the moment. So there's a lot of factors that go into valuing a palladium prospect, but as a rough rule of thumb, I'd say at least 1 gram per tonne.
So while we're on the same topic, I guess, say someone puts an announcement out, what kind of numbers roughly? And I know, as you've just said, there's many factors that bounce it, but investors only look at the things that is that trend. So when they quote a nickel percentage and a palladium percentage and a depth of intercept, what should we be saying? Oh wow, that's fantastic. Or oh man, that's not good enough. What is that magical figure?
There's just no easy answer, because it depends on whether it's a one intersection. Are there a number of intersections that look like it's a continuous body of mineralisation? Is it sporadic? Is it here and there? Can you trace that along a particular geological contact? Does it look like it will form a body of mineralisation that could be extracted by mining? So if you have a couple of good hits in one location, nothing in between, a few good hits at another location, 100 metres, it's just not mineable. So you need to have some continuity of geology and mineralisation, and then the grade with it as well. So you could, in theory, you could have very low grades of nickel and palladium if it's a very large ore body and it's near surface and it's close to existing infrastructure. So there's so many things go into a good quality mine, but the market, I think, gets very excited about early stage results with the expectation that it might lead to a resource or mining, and that's a fair call. So to go from early stage results to, say, an ore grade intersection, that is a big jump, and I think the market rewards those companies that are able to do that, and we're obviously hoping to do the same.
So is there a proportion of, let's say, we're only talking nickel and palladium, as you said, there are other factors, that, if there's, if you say 1.5 is a good number, so if it was 2.5 and 0.3%, or is it 2% nickel and 1.5? Is there a magical balance? I know
there's no magical number at which you could say that's definitely going to be a mine, because the other factor, of course, is the commodity price at the time.
Yeah.
So a few years ago, we wouldn't be talking about palladium like this, and I'm talking 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Now palladium is of real value and consequence in the development of cleaner technologies, and we think it's going to be like that for at least the next few decades.
Yeah.
So we're talking about a metal that has come from relative obscurity to something that is now highly valued. So the grades, everything's changed.
I think there was a confusion at the turn as well, that palladium was catalytic converters, therefore all these cars are going to go extinct anyway, and then they were saying, well, there's no more use for palladium, but then that's turned on its head as well, right? So
yeah, they just keep finding more uses for it. It's in fact a very useful metal, which is great.
Yeah. So one thing I've noticed is that you guys got a lot of cash in your bank and you've raised well. From my point of view, you're an explorer. You're out there. You got hit and misses as you would expect, but you're well funded, right? So that seems to tell me you've got strong supporters. What are those guys saying to you when you're having, hey, give me some more money? What are those guys saying to you?
They're wanting to see us well funded enough that we forget about the market, the daily fluctuations, movements in share price, and just focus on making a discovery. Okay. The thing that matters for our major shareholders is not a 10 or 20% movement in the share price. Uninterested. They want us to make a discovery. Here's the money. Just get on with it. So it's quite a strong mandate. But
good, though.
Yes, there's also a lot of responsibility with that. So we are driven to use every technique we have available to try and make a discovery. No one's saying it's easy, and I think our major shareholders understand that as well. But that's why we are well funded. We've got good support and enough funding to not worry about the fluctuations of the market over the short term, and for us to get on with the job of making a discovery.
Right, you must be the envy of the market, because and too many shareholders out there telling companies that.
We've got shareholders that are very interested in the short-term changes in the share price, and everyone's interested in it to some extent. I am, of course, as well. It's not something I ignore, but the ultimate aim of our company is to make a discovery and see the price appreciation based on a real and genuine discovery, which can often be 10 times the starting position of the stock. So that's really what we're about, is trying to make a large-scale economic discovery of benefit for our major shareholders and, of course, everyone else that's invested in the company as well.
Look, I couldn't agree more. I mean, from a guy who used to run companies, it's good comfort that your shareholders are supporting you for just that, right? For discovery, not for that mining the market scenario, I guess. What do you think of this nickel market? I mean, that the price of nickel's gone to stratosphere. Looks like it's probably going to be sustained. Then we have this thing with the recrate thing. How long do you think this is going to happen? I mean, in terms of the consequences, because if there's a lot of nickel that comes out of Russia, and if this was curtailed, do you see a huge imbalance in supply and demand? Hence, the pricing would go more than what it is today?
And my personal view on the macroeconomic situation of all metals is that the world can afford to pay a lot more for metals. So I don't believe that the prices we are seeing are unsustainable. I believe that the industries that use metals can afford to pay what we're seeing. So it comes down to supply. If the demand is there and pulling the price up, can the supply meet that demand, and will oversupply bring the price down? So if we look at the supply, then we've got some of the issues you mentioned around Russia and the development of new mines. If we don't see a lot of new supply coming on, then I believe the price of metals, copper, nickel, palladium, will stay high for an extended period of time.
Yeah, I think it's. I do feel that this market will hang in there, because I think, as we've spoken many times, we're like in the industrial evolution that our generation of this, right? Not the 1920s. Look, going forward, I know you touched on it a bit. What is the plan? You've got drilling coming up. What's the news for potential investors and investors alike?
Well, we hope to be drilling within the week, and we are targeting an area at Mount Thirsty where we've already hit sulphides. So we have results 27 metres at about 0.6 grams per tonne palladium. But remembering our key figure we spoke about before, there is an interval within that, about 3 metres over 1 gram per tonne palladium. So for us, it's of interest. The sulphides are containing palladium and nickel and copper. And we expect to hit more sulphides with the next round of drilling, because also another factor of these systems is that they are very large. So that's very exciting for us. We'd expect to start drilling within the week and have our initial visual results and geological logs available to the market a few weeks after that. We're expecting sulphides, and it comes down to the grade.
This area hasn't had a history of palladium, is it? I mean, palladium's only stuck its head out recently, for obvious reasons. But are you surprised in what you're seeing? I mean, you've been a geo, you've been around, you've read a lot. Are you surprised what you're seeing? Or what you're finding, I should say?
I'm surprised that it just keeps getting bigger. That's really been quite amazing. So in terms of the geology, as we explore and begin to understand what's formed there, that's not surprising. There's a lot of global analogies, and we understand the way that it's formed in relation to other examples around the world. Yeah. But the scale of these targets is really substantial, and that's been the surprise for us. Because we haven't explored for palladium in this area very strongly, either ourselves or people that have worked there previously. There are a number of targets that are coming out, and the scale of the targets is the surprise.
Okay. Look, Brad, it's always good to have you here. I mean, it's a good education, and I think exploration is what it is, and you guys keep doing the same thing, and I think it's about just building a picture over time. Since your last time since the last time you've come to Coffee with Samso, we've had an association with Florence Drummond and her associates. She runs Indigenous Women in Mining Resource. and she's come up with this for us, coffee from Indigenous related business for our guests.
Oh, great. Thank you very much.
Look, Brett, thank you. And look, any last words to sell and upset the ASX because you're telling them things that only Coffee with Samso comes up with?
Of course, we'd never do that. But the first thing I'd say is that our company runs on coffee, so thanks very much for that. And for investors, just to keep an eye out on our drill results. So we're well funded. We'll undertake a number of drilling programs this year. The next drilling program's ready to kick off within the week. And with some luck and some skill, we hope to make a discovery.
Oh, great. We're looking forward to hearing from that. Thank you.
Thanks, all.